Last week, we spoke with the CEO of UNICEF. The First Lady last week held delivery remarks at the UNICEF event, a sideline event on the as part of the UNGA 7th UN General Assembly, where she announced $150 million to combat childhood poison in developing countries and end the childhood poison by 200 by 2040. This is a huge investment that the US is making, and we had an opportunity to speak with the UNICEF USA CEO Michael Nyenhuis about what this investment means, and also talk about some of the other programs that the organization is working on across developing countries, supporting um, local program, as well as how they are helping children, especially those that have been displaced by war, that have been displaced by the climate crisis or economic disparity across the world. And here is the interview with UNICEF USA CEO Michael Nyenhuis. Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much for joining me. I have the CEO of UNICEF USA with me, Heidi Concordia. I know this is a busy week for everyone, and as well as you. Let's start by talking about the announcement that was made this week on Monday by First Lady Dr. Jill Biden.
Yes, well, we're really excited about the U.S. government's partnership with UNICEF and many others to combat lead poisoning in children all around the world. So one of the shocking statistics from that announcement and from what we know about lead poisoning is that in the developing world, 1 in every 2 children have elevated levels of lead in their blood. And this is poison, literally poison, that impacts the development of brains and development of the young people themselves. And so we have to do something about it. It's one of those problems that can be solved if we put the right resources and the right strategies against it. So yes, we had a big event at UNICEF here in New York. We had the executive director of UNICEF itself, Kathy Russell, was there. The First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, the head of USAID, Samantha Power, Ajay Benga from the World Bank, and a whole bunch of others who are rallying around this issue to combat and stamp out lead poisoning.
And what is the government? I know the U.S. government is involved, having the name of the First Lady Joe Biden, USAID, as you mentioned, and the World Bank. How is government in the developing world responding to this new initiative?
Well, I think really well. I mean, they understand. We had heads of state from, at that meeting, heads of state from Malawi, Nepal, and from Dominican Republic were all there as well, and they were talking about what they're doing in their countries and their own commitments to it, just as an example of the commitments that governments are making around the world. So we really do believe there's a momentum behind this, and again, it's one of those issues. Some issues are super complex and very hard to get to the bottom of, but this is not one of them. We know where lead poisoning comes from. We know how to combat it. We just need the will and the resources to get it done.
Speaking of all the complex issues around the world that you're dealing with, we have the war, Middle East, we have issue in Sudan. Just to name some of the few, children are significantly affected their education. So talk about how you are working on that. We are the UN General Assembly, the 79, where leaders around the world are gathered. What do you hope that leader will talk about, and what will you like to see at the end of this particular session?
Well, we have more children displaced from their homes around the world today than at any time in human history. This is a massive problem because when kids are displaced from their homes, it's not just their houses. They're displaced from their schools and their neighborhoods and their health centers and all the social services that help them develop and have an opportunity to thrive. So a lot of that is because of conflict. You mentioned Sudan, you mentioned Gaza, you mentioned anywhere else that there's conflict, Ukraine certainly. And another problem is climate change, floods and droughts and all of that that's impacting kids that are moving, and economic issues as well. And so what we need world leaders to do here at the General Assembly is to tackle these big issues. You can't solve the problem of displaced kids and all of the jeopardy that it puts them in without solving conflicts, without solving the climate crisis, without solving economic disparities. So we need them to take these issues seriously and get something done on it.
The World Bank and the IMF meeting are coming up in October. I don't know whether you will participate in that, but that's a huge issue where a lot of the budgets that you're talking about will come from. What is your message to ministers that will attend that event?
Well, again, just prioritize these issues. This is about the future of our children, so it's about the future of our planet. And if we don't solve this now, the problems get worse. We know that investments in child development today, whether it's health, whether it's education, pay dividends. It's a smart financial investment to try to arrest these problems now because they're just going to get worse if we don't.
Okay. Last two questions. Artificial intelligence is a big topic on the sideline at the UNGA. How do you see this improving the work that you're doing at UNICEF?
Yeah, I mean, we see AI as both one of the great opportunities, for instance, to expand education opportunities for youth and to help solve problems in the health space and logistics and all kinds of things. But we also see it as a huge threat to children, too. The online world that children live in today, wherever they are in the world, is significantly impacted by misinformation, disinformation, and all kinds of other threats that AI poses as well. So this is one of those tools that is either going to be, well, probably will be both, really helpful and really dangerous. And we have to make sure that we're developing systems that mitigate the dangers and accelerate the positives for them.
How do you stay level-headed during this week of marathon meetings and activities, and what are you doing to stay relaxed?
I think one of the things about this week, which is so powerful, is that so many people from so many different sectors are here in New York working on similar issues, and it's when we come together, sometimes you bump into people or in a meeting you hear something that's going to accelerate progress. And I was at a meeting yesterday with some corporate leaders, and we were talking about the power of corporate partnerships, and one of them said, we just don't all know each other yet. So the more we know each other, the more we hear what each other is doing, the more we find partnerships that will accelerate, will multiply our success. So 1 + 1 = 3 and 4 and 5, not just 2. And so I'm energized by all of that this week, but I'm waiting for the weekend to go home.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure talking with you. Thank you.